I'm trying to confirm that we have the quorum, and it looks like actually we do. And really, I must congratulate the members because I know quite a number are participating in the requiem mass of our late colleague. And to also find members who are here, it means that we really have worked hard. Okay.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Order members, this particular one, honorable members, I wish to introduce to you a delegation of members and staff from the Parliament of Algeria, seated in the Speaker's row. The delegation comprises of the following: Honorable Said Bauhaja, Speaker and leader of the delegation; Honorable El Haj Laib, MP, Deputy Speaker; Honorable Mohammed Abdel Hadi, MP, President of the Algeria-Kenya Parliamentary Friendship Group; 4, Mr. Merhad Barouk, Advisor on International Relations to the Honorable Speaker; and 5th, Mr. Nadir Belagel, Chief of Protocol to the Honorable Speaker. Honorable members, the delegation is in the country under the invitation of the Speaker of the National Assembly, and their program includes, among other activities, the formation and inauguration of the Kenya-Algeria Parliamentary Friendship Group. On behalf of the National Assembly and on my own behalf, I welcome them to the National Assembly and wish them a fruitful engagement during their stay in the country. I thank you. Just also to mention that the delegation is also accompanied by Ambassador Leno Shira, the Kenyan ambassador to Algeria.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
On this particular one, we have the Honorable Jeremiah Ekamais. Is he in the house? Honorable Ekamais? Proceed. I'm not seeing your card here. Press it under the intervention.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving this opportunity to read this petition. And I read, Honorable Speaker, a petition by residents of Turkana County on establishment of dams and drilling of bowels. I, the undersigned on behalf of the residents of Turkana County, draw the attention of the House to the following: that, Mr. Speaker, I did not carry my specs, that is the problem. That Article 69 of the Constitution provides that the state shall ensure sustainable exploration, utilization, management, and conservation of the give me your specific. Let me just read
Honorable Ekamais, I know you have a problem. Normally you use some glasses.
Yeah, exactly.
I do not know whether that is what is giving
that is
you trouble.
the major problem. This one is different. Okay, thank you.
I think in the spirit of the handshakes of yesterday, I can see many members approaching you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the handshake has really helped a lot. I repeat, Honorable Speaker.
I am told, actually, Honorable Ekamais, I am told Actually, the member for Juja wants to give you his contact lenses. I don't know how he's going to remove them from the eye.
Thank you, thank you.
Proceed.
Okay, I read, Honorable Speaker. I, the undersigned on behalf of the resident of Turkana County, draw the attention of the House to the following. That Article 69 of the Constitution provides that the state shall ensure sustainable exploitation. Presented in this petition is not pending before my tribunal court of law or independent body. Mr. Speaker, I continue. Therefore, your humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, 1, recommends that National Assembly allocates funds for construction of at least 3 dams and 3 boreholes to Namoneankala, Lomokori, and Moruita areas. Number 2, ensures that the petitioner's plight is addressed. And lastly, number 3, makes any other order or direction that it deems fit in the circumstances of the matter. And your petitioners will ever pray. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I felt like my friend Songok will make a contribution to...
No, that is not your business, Honorable Ekamais. In fact, as a result of what you have just done, Honorable Sankok will not contribute to this particular one. That is when you will, of course, realize that, power rests somewhere. So it cannot be you choosing members who are going to speak. I see Honorable Sankok here, but I'm going to skip him, and I'm going to give a Honorable Member for Kwanza. That is Honorable Wanyonyi Kevin, if he wants to speak to this one.
Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to thank my colleague. You know, I come from Trans-Nzoia, and Turkana is my neighbor, and I think this petition is probably before this House. Mr. Speaker, I think it's necessary for us to be able to help the residents of Turkana. And as we know, we passed the bill on irrigation recently. Mr. Speaker, I think it's only fair that the residents of Uganda, of Turkana, in most cases during the dry spell, go to Uganda to graze the animals and come back. And therefore, I think it's necessary for us to build for them the boreholes and the dams as requested. And therefore, I think it's only fair that this Parliament, through this petition, and I think through the Ministry of Natural Resources and even Agriculture, they do something on this request, because that's the only way you can help the people of Uganda. I support.
Very well. On the other side, I see Honorable Bowen Kangogo, member for Marakwet East.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support my good friend from Loima. Mr. Speaker, the petition before this House is very important because water is a basic human need, Mr. Speaker. Especially, Mr. Speaker, from the pastoral community. Mr. Speaker, to change the nomadic life of the people of Turkana and the general pastoralists in Kenya, there is need to have water provided to these people. Mr. Speaker, it's very unfortunate that our people from Turkana had to cross to Uganda to get water. And being a member of the committee, Mr. Speaker, of Environment and Water, we are going to take this petition very seriously to make sure that the people of Loima benefit with the natural resource, which is
of Equalization Fund. And I'll be very much interested to see the impact that fund has impacted on this country, because many members here are always complaining that the Equalization Fund is not running smoothly and is not reaching the beneficiaries. So, Mr. Speaker, I think a lot can be done, but I support that Turkana also, even using Lake Turkana, which is a freshwater lake, and also Turkana has a lot of water aquifers. I think the government can be able to tap that resource and benefit the people of Turkana. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Andai.
Mr. Speaker, I also wish to thank my friend and colleague, the member for Loima, for bringing up this petition. But I want to echo the sentiments of Honorable Katuri Murungi. Mr. Speaker, even as we petition the national government to help the people in terms of the provision of basic facilities or requirements or necessities such as water, we must be alive to the fact that the county governments have now come of age. We could have excused them in the first term, these county governments. But as we speak, the county governments should be in a position to prioritize.
Let's be brief, Honorable Andai.
For their people what needs to be done. And therefore, as much as I want to support the petition and implore on the government through this House to look at the matter expeditiously, I must challenge the county government to up their game and address the issues that are of concern to the people of their counties. Thank you.
Okay. This time, do you support or you oppose? Because you have been opposing petitions since morning. But anyway,
Mr. Speaker, petitions are neither opposed nor supported.
Okay, let's have the next one, Honorable Mwashiatani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to table this petition by a public petition by the residents of Kwale on the demolition of buildings to facilitate expansion of Likoni Lunga Lunga Road. Mr. Speaker, the undersigned, on behalf of residents of Kwale County, draw the attention of the House to the following. One, that aware the Lunga Lunga constituency is located in Kwale County and is a tourist attraction area and the food basket of coastal region in Kenya, and that there are major investments in form of recreation, establishment, and businesses in Lunga Lunga area that facilitate economic activity for the local communities. Honorable Speaker, that Section 111 of the Land Act 2012 envisages that if land is acquired compulsory, just compensation shall be paid promptly in full at all persons whose interests in the land have been determined. That the Kenya National Highway Authority issued an eviction and demolition notice to some land and business owners in regard to the buildings erected along the Likoni Lunga Lunga Road, A14 Road, South. Further affected the order that the building in question were constructed over 60 years ago and were erected on legal acquired land and as per occupant in good faith. Honorable Speaker, Article 44 provides the compensation may be paid to occupants in good faith of land acquired to owners who may not hold title to the land. Honorable Speaker, that some of the buildings demolished were located more than 20 meters from the road reserve, therefore were not eligible for demolition or eviction. Honorable Speaker, the demolition and eviction has rendered these residents squatters and deprived them of their means of livelihood, as it serves as a source of accessing education and health facilities. Honorable Speaker, the matter is urgent and requires immediate intervention from the respective government agencies. That efforts to resolve the matter with the respective authorities have been futile. That the matter in respect of which this petition is made is not pending before any court of law. Honorable Speaker, sir, therefore, your humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Departmental Committee of Land, recommends compensation of the affected property and landowners and some token for occupant in good faith to express government will for social justice. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, the petitioners recommend establish of a committee of the affected person at location level to identify the affected persons, and finally, ensure that the petitioner plight are addressed. And your petitioners will ever pray. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, now, this one I'm not going to open it too much. Probably one member only to comment. Do I see Honorable Nyamai? You want to speak to this particular one? Or it is the next one? So speak.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I know that this petition that has been raised by the Honorable Khatib Mwashitani, who happens to be the Vice Chair for Parliamentary Committee on Lands, will come to our committee. But I would like to make a short comment about this as the Member of Parliament for Kitui South. Honorable Speaker, there is a problem when it comes to roads that are being constructed. Yes, we really need these roads, but currently in my constituency, there are complaints along all the towns that are within Kitui South, from Athi to Mutomo to Ikanga to Ikudha, because somehow Kenha has changed the size of the road. That initially it was 20 meters, and now it has become 30 meters from the center of the road. And people's houses are being demolished, and towns are being affected. So this is a matter that, as we deal with the matter that has been raised by the Honorable Mwashitani, we'll also call upon Kenha to decisively deal on this matter. I know that the bill that is upcoming, that is the Land Index Bill, is going to bring a kind of a solution to this. But before this bill becomes law, I would like to say that the committee has already handled it. We've already written a report, so it's coming soon. But even before this becomes law, it is important that we deal with our constituents because people are becoming impatient. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Is that member for, is it Undanyi?
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Mimi ni mbunge wa Mwatate. Mheshimiwa Spika, haya malalamishi kwa kweli yanaenea kila mahali. Nikiangalia katika hii barabara ambaye imetengenezwa na Kenha kutoka Voi mpaka kule Taveta, kuna watu wengi sana sehemu za Mlugi kule Bura, Chavia pale Kongorinyi, bado pia hawajapata fidia na barabara iliisha zamani. Na hawa watu wa Mwatate wengi wanatabika, manake wajui wataenda wapi. Kila wakati wanakuja kwangu, na mimi kila wakati niko katika maofisi ya land, lakini bado hawajapata fidia. Wengine wamepata fidia ambayo ni shukran, lakini sehemu ya wao hawajapata. Na ningeomba kamati wajaribu kuangalia wakati hizi barabara zinatengenezwa, angalau tusiwache hawa watu wakiumia, manake ni binadamu tu kama sisi. Mheshimiwa Spika, hata pia mimi nilikuwa nimeweka malalamishi kwa swala kama hili, lakini sasa nafikiri nitaondoa kwa sababu mwenzio amenitangulia na ameongea jambo hili. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Okay, next order. I know many other members wanted to speak on this one, but leave it for another time.
Order number 5, papers.
Leader of Majority Party? Or that will be done by the Majority Whip?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of Leader of Majority Party, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, May 3rd, 2018, afternoon sitting. 1, National Government Budget Implementation Review Report, half year for the financial year 2017-2018 from the Office of Controller of budget. 2, reports of Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 30th June 2017 and the certificates therein. A, Ministry of Land and Fiscal Planning. B, State Department of Gender Affairs. C, State Department of Special Programs. D, State Department of Cooperatives. Vote 1173. E, Treasury Main Clearance Fund. F, Commission on Revenue Allocation. And G, Rural Enterprise Fund. Mr. Speaker, third report, reports on the Auditor General and financial statements of the Kenya National Shipping Line Limited for the year ended 30th June 2014 and the certificate therein. 4, the 2017 post-election economic and fiscal report from the National Treasury pursuant to Section 27, Subarticle 1 of the Public Finance Management Act. 5th and last, a report of the National Commission on Human Rights on investigations into police brutality committed at the University of Nairobi on 28th September 2017. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Let's go to the next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
I see on this one, Honorable Mushira has something. Is he in the house? Okay, proceed.
Order number 7, statements. Order number 8, procedural motion, reduction of publication period of a bill.
That's the chair budget?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Now I wish to move this procedural motion that notwithstanding the provision of Standing Order number 120, this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the Equalization Fund Appropriation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 16 of 2018, from 7 to 1 day. Honorable Speaker, in light of the fact that this came today and with the late submission of the estimates for the Equalization Fund, it will only be fair, especially because this relates to revoting of these estimates, something that was done in the last financial year, but that bill lapsed. That to do justice to those members, the constituencies and counties that benefit from this fund, we are able to appropriate this money and they be able to finish up on the many projects as were listed in our reports that are still unfinished because of lack of funds, Honorable Speaker. I wish to ask Honorable Wario from our Sabit, a member of the Budget Committee, to second.
Yes, who is your seconder? But that fellow, honorable member standing, is obviously, is that Honorable Wario? We only know, okay, that must be another Honorable Wario. We know the other one from Tana River. This must be the one from Moyale. Proceed. Proceed, Honorable Wario. I can't seem to pick your card here. So unless you place it in the intervention slot, it may not be easy. We are trying to locate you. Maybe you use the next one. Let's see where you can. You seem to be unlucky with the gadgets today. Maybe then you can use the dispatch box, or yeah, come to the dispatch box or the other. Then. Yes, please come to the.
Thank you.
I can tell you are being located left, right, and center, and you are not being found. Yes, you have it now. You have it now. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Equalization Fund is anchored in the Constitution. And in Chapter 12, actually, under Public Act, Public Finance Act, it clearly indicates that disparities among the counties can be actually catered for under fund like Equalization Fund. And since inception, since the Constitution has started working, the Equalization Fund actually has not been appropriated as required and has not benefited the areas that ought to have benefited from Equalization Fund. And as a result, currently, actually, there are contracts or projects which are ongoing, but this fund cannot be given or by the budget, control of budget because the appropriation has elapsed. And as a result, it is very, very necessary for this House to accept this reduction of the period of the equalization bill from 7 days to 1 day. I second the motion. Thank you.
Oh, okay. And honorable members, you see, the person proposing should always talk more than the one seconding. It's only better done that way. So I propose a question, which is Equalization Fund Appropriation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 16 of 2018 from 7 to 1 day. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Those of our contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, the Supplementary Appropriation number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 15 of 2018, second reading. Question to be put.
Honorable members, order. Order, members. I put the question, which is that the Supplementary Appropriation Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 15 of 2018 be read a second time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to authorize the issue of certain sums of money out of the consolidated fund and their application towards the service of the year ending on the 30th June 2018, and to appropriate those sums for certain public services and purposes. Order number 10, motion, report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the estimates of revenue and expenditure from the Equalization Fund for the financial year 2017-2018.
Yes, the chair budget.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Now I should move that this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the estimates of revenue to an expenditure from the Equalization Fund for the financial year 2017-2018, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 3rd May 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 204 of the Constitution and Standing Order 235.5, approves the withdrawal of Kenya shillings 11,977,764,688 shillings from the Equalization Fund that consists of the following. 1, Kenya shillings 428,162,930.40 for recurrent expenditure, and 2, Kenya shillings 11,549,601,757.60 for development expenditure. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Speaker, as per the reportable before this House, and as I mentioned, as I move the procedural motion, Honorable Speaker, this is simply a revote of the same appropriations bill that we did in the 11th Parliament in the last financial year, but which lapsed. And Honorable Speaker, if you read, if members read the committee's recommendations, you see that we are recommending that in future, to avoid further delays in the implementation of the Equalization Fund, the National Treasury should submit the Equalization Fund estimate together with the annual estimate beginning with the 2018-2019 financial year, financial estimates. And Honorable Speaker, the financial estimates for the coming financial year were tabled by the Leader of Majority this morning. And it is my sincere hope that the National Treasury has indeed submitted the Equalization Fund estimates as provided for in the Constitution and in our standing orders together with those of the other estimates, Honorable Speaker. I can hear the Leader of Majority whispering that they have done so. That's why I said I sincerely hope so, because I am yet to see what was tabled this morning. But it is also imperative that this House does insist that the National Treasury tables these estimates together, so that as we consider the annual estimates, we are also able to consider the equalization estimates to avoid a situation like we find ourselves in today, because we are having to revote, because in the last Parliament, in the last financial year, Honorable Speaker, we were only able to appropriate this money too close to the end of the financial year, and therefore the agencies that are implementing these projects were not able to do so and absorb this money before the end of the financial year. Mr. Speaker, the other recommendation is that the second generation marginalization policy being developed by the Commission for Revenue Allocation, that CRA, should and must be tabled in this House for adoption, because there's a tendency, Honorable Speaker, by some of these constitutional commissions to ignore and hold with a lot of contempt this House. And as members of Parliament, as representatives of our people, we do have a stake in many of these policies, and we must insist, as recommended by the committee, that this policy be tabled and adopted by this House, so that if there are regions, Honorable Speaker, that warrant to qualify under this equalization fund and are currently not benefiting, Honorable Speaker, they can benefit. And I looked at the 14 counties that are benefiting from this equalization fund, Honorable Speaker. And you can see there are many, many areas, many deserving areas, including pockets of Kiambu County, Honorable Speaker, like in Deya, Gatuanyaga, in that borders Yatta and Kitui counties, that basically are the same geographical dispersion and same conditions as those very marginalized areas. There are areas in Kitui, Honorable Speaker, Kitui, parts of Laikipia County, there are parts of Ukambani that are not benefiting, parts of Makueni County, for instance, that have suffered, parts of Kajiado County. Honorable Speaker, I know this is an emotive issue, but I'm just mentioning these issues so that members can get interest.
You know,
also areas like in Nyando.
You are not coming very clear. Did you say Kiptororo also? Yes, proceed, Honorable Member.
Of course, Honorable Speaker, areas like Kiptororo, where people are really suffering and have been marginalized over the years. Therefore, we need to have the members of this House to interrogate that marginalization policy, so that we ensure that those areas that are not covered are also covered, not just the counties as was there in the first marginalization policy. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, the committee recommends the amendment of the Public Finance Management Act to provide the necessary safeguard of the resources in the fund. Specifically, the committee will move to make amendments geared towards making sure that the resources appropriated do not lapse at the end of any financial year, as has happened with this bill that we are having to revote. That, Mr. Speaker, is just to safeguard this fund, just like we have done with CDF, that at the end of every financial year, this fund does not lapse, and any monies that have been appropriated remains in the fund for use to uplift these marginalized areas. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, because I don't take a lot of time, if you look at the report, Honorable Speaker, and I'm speaking this to members who come from the constituencies that are benefiting, counties and constituencies that are benefiting from this fund. If you look at the report, Honorable Speaker, and in line with the Constitution, this fund was meant to uplift those marginalized areas, and specifically in areas to do with health, energy, water, roads, yes, energy is there, and water. But if you look at the report, Honorable Speaker, and I think members should take interest, and I don't to be specific to any particular constituency or county, but you will find projects of about 20 million shillings, 30 million shillings in specific constituencies and counties. I want to ask members who are benefiting from this fund, because the spirit of the Constitution and indeed the drafters of this Constitution and creation of this fund was to be able to uplift those marginalized areas. I highly doubt whether one small project of 20 million shillings to do a road will in a big way impact the uplifting of those marginalized areas. Let us also, because we are being given that opportunity through public participation, to identify projects. Please let us identify projects that are mega projects that would otherwise not be funded in any other way. So that, for instance, if you go to the county of Turkana County, Honorable Speaker, from the advent of devolution, is one of the counties that has received the highest allocations, a dam that will provide water to millions of people across the county instead of identifying one small borehole of 5 to 7 million shillings that will only be able to provide water for a limited time and to a very small locality. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, is on, I've forgotten. Before you put the question, Honorable Speaker, since I will have time to reply, I've forgotten my last point. Let me ask one of the beneficiaries of this fund, one of the principal beneficiaries, the leader of majority, the Honorable Aden Duale, member of Garissa, to second as a beneficiary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am a beneficiary courtesy of 2010 Constitution, not at the whims of those who are in power. That the Constitution, Article 204 of the Constitution, the Speaker, is very, very clear, as I second. Mr. Speaker, let's call a spade a spade. Let's read the Constitution, Article 204. And for those who have not read it, the Speaker, if you allow me, Article 204, subsection 3, the national government shall use the Equalization Fund only to provide basic services, blah, blah, water, roads, but it says at the far end, areas to the extent necessary to bring quality of those services in those areas to the level generally enjoyed by the rest of the nation, so far as possible. Speaker, the Constitution is in black and white. We participated in this Constitution, some of us, not because we loved all the provisions of that Constitution. Some of us supported this Constitution, number one, because of the Equalization Fund, number two, because of devolution, and number three, because of the Cadiz Court. Those are the three things that even made me, for the first time in the history of Kenya, to go on a different side of the team with the Honorable William Ruto, who opposed the Constitution. Yes, that's the only time I left William Ruto, and I left it on principle. Speaker, it's very sad. This Equalization Fund has a time frame of 20 years. 8 years have so far elapsed, and there is nothing on the ground in these 8 years. Yeah, 8 years has gone. We only have 12 years. And Mr. Speaker, the National Treasury must tell us where the money of allocation for equalization is kept. Mr. Speaker, in fact, I want to challenge the CS for National Treasury to tell this House and the Chair of Budget, Where is the office of the Equalization Advisory Board Secretariat? We want to know their physical address. They have not, yes, they have, yes. And they are saying, administration, they want to pick 485 million. They have spent 485 million. And they don't have, there is no physical location where the Equalization Advisory Board Secretariat is, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this House must take its duty to protect. Mr. Speaker.
I see quite a number of members who are...
Equalization Fund.
What is it, Honorable Kilonzo Mutavi?
They want to
contribute. No, but he's placed it under different...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's only that, Mr. Speaker, is the honorable member in order to mislead the House that he supported the Constitution, while those of us who are supporting the new Constitution, he gave us a lot of problems with the Deputy President, Mr. Speaker. And now that, Mr. Speaker, there's a new culture of apologizing and shaking hands, can he take the opportunity and apologize to us who fought hard for him to get equalization, as he is getting now?
Mr. Speaker, Honorable Kilonzo by then was a member of the Wiper Party. But during the constitutional referendum, he went to bed with ODM then. He was more close to the former Prime Minister. And because they branded some of us, including my party leader, as watermelons then. He branded some of us, the current president, and many, many of us, including the late John Michuki, as watermelons. He still believes I'm a watermelon, but I voted and my constituency voted. But Mr. Speaker, coming back, Speaker, Equalization Fund is a special fund established under Article 204 of the Constitution to upscale delivery of service and facilities in areas that have been marginalized by nothing else but by centralization in resource allocation. Speaker, before the advent of the 2010 Constitution, Kenya was run in terms of resources through a policy of centralization. Speaker, of course, it is very sad today. We voted for devolution, and the pastoralist counties get the highest allocation of resources, starting with Turkana. The 3 counties of northeastern gets over 30 billion. Mr. Speaker, still we don't see much on the ground. But I'm sure as years goes by, things will change. Speaker, again, this fund was to be utilized on the provision of 4 key areas: water, health, electricity, and roads. And Mr. Speaker, the Constitution further gives a timeline for the delivery of Equalization Fund at 20 years. This means that we are behind schedule in terms of actual implementation. And responsibility, Mr. Speaker, lies with those responsible for the Equalization Fund Advisory Board. And Mr. Speaker, this fund is only 20 years, and already 8 years are gone, and nothing can be seen on the ground, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, the Budget Committee needs to be recognized for their way they have worked, and I really want to thank the chair. It's only since Friday we decided that we should make sure that we pass this bill before we go on recess. And in fact, Monday afternoon they had a sitting, they had went through this report, and last night we had to make sure through the Office of the Clerk that the bill is published. So the current Committee of Budget and Appropriation, its chair and members, have done a good job within a very short time to bring us a report and, of course, prepare the Equalization Bill. Speaker, this House needs to approve these funds for ultimate utilization by the people concerned. Speaker, the resources appropriated from the Equalization Fund have been treated in the past like those resources appropriated annually. Yet this fund must be treated just like the way the CDF, the National Government CDF Fund, is treated. It must be ring-fenced, that even if a financial year lapses, the resources are available for utilization and for implementation. That's why the chair said, once we come back, we will amend the Public Finance Management Act to provide for that ring fencing. And I really want members to support that. Mr. Speaker, as members have to be very concerned with the poor absorption capacity of these funds. The funds are for critical areas, and there's no reason whatsoever that should deter the implementation. I believe the Budget Committee reviews the estimates for 2018-2019, and it will ask the National Treasury where. And I really want the Honorable Chair and members to ask the CS for National Treasury where the administrator of this fund resides. There must be an administrator. It can't be the PS for National Treasury. It can't be the minister. There must be an administrator stationed somewhere with a physical address that members and everybody can go and Parliament can invite and grill him on the usage of this fund. Speaker, finally, and I really want to beg the Honorable Chair, do not use your powers as a member of Kikuyu. Do not use your powers to go for funds that don't belong to you. You are very privileged because you have produced two presidents. You have produced two presidents. You are privileged. You are privileged because you have the opportunity.
What is it, Honorable Ishungwa, now that you have been mentioned?
You know, Honorable Speaker, the leader of majority, who I said respectfully is a major beneficiary of this fund from Garissa County, has said that I am using my position as chair of the Budget Committee to go for funds that don't belong to me. And I pointed it out to the House that it is a fact that there are areas in this country that deserve these funds. And I gave the example of Kiptororo. I gave the example of Makueni. I gave the example of Kitui.
Yes, you are completely protected.
And the boundary of Kikuyu and Kajiado in Nashu. But more so is the accusation that we have produced two presidents. Mr. Speaker, unless in the future Kikuyu constituency sees it and Kenyans see it befitting for the member of Kikuyu to be president of this country in the future, Kikuyu has never produced a president. The only president in this country have been Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, who was from Gatundu South. Mzee Daniel Moi was from Kabaratonjo. Mzee Mwai Kibaki hailed from Othaya and Kamukunji or somewhere like Shauri Moyo in Nairobi. Our good friend, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, hails from Gatundu South. Therefore, and these people have served this country as president, not on account of where they came from, because Kenyans found them befitting to serve this country as president.
So what is out of order
and should
there?
they find, should they find the member of Kikuyu befitting in the future?
You are using
Mr.
that
Speaker,
point of order for political gain. So you are out of order. But what is it, the member for Ntonyiri, the former member for Ntonyiri, I mean, now the current member for Igembe? Igembe North.
What do I use now? Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we should be able to describe something when it looks bad. Igembe North, where I represent, it shares 240 kilometer stretch of boundary with Isiolo. No, I want to ask a question. No, I'm asking what is justified. You don't put funds in the wrong place as a purpose of discrimination and then start cheering about it. Mr. Speaker, the leader of majority knows the climate in Karibatula and the climate in Kulamawe and the Merit is the same as the climate in Kachuru. Kachuru is my constituency. They benefit, we don't benefit. This is a bad thing.
Now, you see, you should have, well, you might have a point. And actually, probably you do. The only problem, you've risen on a point of order and proceeded to debate. Now, you might have a good, you have said you share 100 kilometers with Isiolo, they benefit, you don't. That is a
But because over the years and because of the sessional papers that were drafted by people I don't want mention previously, which entrenched marginalization of certain areas in this country, now it became necessary to insert this provision in the Constitution, and we have to live with it. Mr. Speaker, my concern is that and I'm sure honorable members have realized, that we are appropriating sums that we had already appropriated. That is what is causing me concern. We had already appropriated this sum of close to 12 billion shillings in the previous years. But because the people tasked with the responsibility of implementing the appropriation acts that this parliament passed, then we are here again reappropriating the same amount. Mr. Speaker, and I agree with the leader of majority that I think we need to amend the Public Finance Management Act to cushion this fund like any other fund that is cushioned, like even the national government CDF, so that we don't come back to reappropriate sums that we had already appropriated. Then it entrenches marginalization. And Mr. Speaker, what, excuse me, Mr. Speaker, what even annoyed me further when we met with the Commission on Revenue Allocation is that, as Budget Committee, is that the Secretariat, which is purely government technocrats, have spent well over 400 million shillings on implementing nothing. For over the years, they have not implemented anything, yet they are spending money. Now, this is a fund that is being expended by people who are managing it, but are managing it sitting in the office, and money is not going to the areas they should go to. We had identified the counties through the CRA, which was supposed to benefit from this fund. And we appropriated 12 billion in 2 consecutive years. Mr. Speaker, see where we are. But Mr. Speaker, the provision in the Constitution is clear that 0.5% of revenue based on the last audited accounts should be transferred to this fund every year. That's a constitutional requirement. The question is, are we transferring 0.5%? Because it cannot be that the first year it was 6 billion, the second year it is 6 billion, yet revenue keeps on rising. I think the Treasury needs to be serious with this money and transfer the correct amount. But Mr. Speaker, even as we talk about this equalization fund, I think as a country we need to be careful. We may use this equalization fund to marginalize further the marginalized areas, because we will not be allocating adequate funds to these areas for development by simply using the excuse of equalization fund, which cannot do a significant project if you look at it critically. So, Mr. Speaker, something needs to be done. An intervention, affirmative action in these areas needs to be done so that these areas also come up. But Mr. Speaker, where I want to disagree a little bit with the leader of majority is that the Constitution has talked about marginalized areas. It doesn't talk about marginalized counties. And Mr. Speaker, I think it should be observed that there are some counties that are, when you look at it globally or in terms of statistics, coming from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, as a county, like Kajiado is, I think, either the richest or second to Nairobi. But there are specific areas in Kajiado that are more marginalized than even a place like Garissa town, where the leader of majority represents. So, Mr. Speaker, much as we talk about marginalized counties, and as a matter of fact, there are some counties that are marginalized entirely, 100%. Like Mandera, there's no debate about it. Like Garissa, but I think Garissa Township is not as much. In fact, if you compare Garissa Township with Suba South constituency, Mr. Speaker, and Suba North, you'll agree with me, at least Suba North. But Suba South is even worse than Suba North, Mr. Speaker. Because I will tell you that this is the first time in the history, and this time I've been MP, is when the Suba South people have seen the tarmac road. For the first time, Suba is seeing a tarmac road. And there are so many areas in the county which almost have tarmac road everywhere. So there is marginalization within the counties. And I think that is what CRA must identify. Let our brothers who come from these marginalized counties, and I know many of them, I know Mandera, I know Garissa, I know Wajir, I know these counties are marginalized. And Turkana, they are marginalized. but also accept that there are certain regions, areas, pockets of areas in certain counties which are not Kikuyu, obviously, Mr. Speaker. That one, Mr. Speaker, you need really to convince a stranger, even a stranger in Kenya, Mr. Speaker, cannot be convinced that Kikuyu or even Kiambu in its entirety. I hear Honorable Waititu talk.
To bring in the old leaders to fight for their rights. It is not important whether one voted for me or not. What is important is that we vote and we continue to vote. Elections in Kenya have been fiery and unfriendly. It's now not important how we got there, but how we get out of there. I celebrate both President Uhuru Kenyatta and the People's President Raila Odinga, my captain to cannon, my Baba, my political mentor, for the handshake. I celebrate my Kikuyu grandmother, whose wisdom and endurance were invaluable in shaping who I am. Let us seek advice from those who learned from instinct and not only institutions. I celebrate my Greek father and my mother, my Dutch and French mother. Our parentage matters not. I am a Kenyan. We need to blend, be, and build Kenya as one. I celebrate my husband, Pius Ngugi, for his acceptance of what he could not change. We were both in separate camps. I'm a headstrong woman, and I have no apologies. I work very hard to prove to my two children, McKenna and Lefteris, that failure is never final, but the beginning of a new journey. To my predecessor, Rachel Shebesh, I want to thank her for conceding defeat graciously and handing over the mantle. Even as she dealt with the loss of her father, she accompanied and accommodated me to lead my needs to learn the ropes. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm a Mombasa girl, born and bred, with the diversity of the coastal town. I moved to the capital city in search for independence through greener pastures. Our capital city is for many a home away from home, and we must strive to quench the thirst, to thrive, and not just to survive by tackling the challenges one by one, two by two, until the capital becomes a center of opportunity. My focus as a leader of this great city I have come to call home is to unite the many, many citizens of this city that are able, and Kenyans across all divides, to deal with the issue of slums, the poor sanitation, the insecurity, the unemployment, lack of access to medical facilities, street families, mental health, PWDs, drug abuse, increasing crime rate, limited access to financial assets to start businesses, sustain income, lack of water, high cost of living, homelessness, congestion, our environmental challenges. All of these have been brought about by lack of planning, mismanagement of both public resources and positions. I want to peg my leadership agenda to the 17 SDGs, Vision 2030, Agenda 2063, the 4 pillars of government, namely manufacturing, universal health, housing, and food security. Though overwhelming, if the administrative arms of government are sincere about the handshake, they will embrace all leaders from all houses, counties, national, and Senate, so that we can all work together to liberate our country and live up to the aspirations of our freedom fighters. Because true freedom is where life feels right and living becomes an inspiration, not a nightmare. Over and above the challenges, there are unique emotive problems facing women I represent: the threat of domestic violence, crimes of passion, sexual harassment, rape remain a reality in spite of existent laws that criminalize the same. We need to act also against corruption. Together we can climb any mountain. Let us drive, deliver, and the dreams of men, women, and children of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to share the story of a young boy called Shadrach. Shadrach was hospitalized last year in August, having suffered a road carnage on Outer Ring Road. Shadrach was paralyzed from the neck down, admitted at Kenyatta National Hospital. Discharged in December, sent home without any assistance to his mother, no physiotherapy, no social services, no wheelchair. Shadrach went home and unfortunately suffered many, many bed sores and was returned back to Kenyatta. When I found Shadrach in Kenyatta National Hospital, I decided something needs to be done. We have a collapse in our social services. I had Shadrach admitted at the Spinal Injury Hospital, where he is up to today. Shadrach, for me, reflects the collapse in our services to our citizens. Shadrach's mother, a mother of 8, I asked her one day, how come I was in the hospital many times and I never saw you? And she said, I never had transport to get to the hospital. So we have real problems with real citizens. And I feel that as a leader, it is people like Shadrach that have inspired me to get into leadership so that we can bring changes. It is Shadrach and many like him who suffer, the patients that I released out of the Kenyatta National Hospital in December of 2017 that are begging for us to look into their needs. I will take on certain cases. For instance, there was a bill, the Gender Crimes Unit bill, a bill brought by Honorable Joyce Slay, right, who pushed for the establishment of the Gender Crimes Unit. I will introduce the motion on the same and galvanize political goodwill for its implementation. It's quite unfortunate that though we have women and youth who greatly contribute to the GDP of the nation, their contribution cannot be quantified in figures or percentage since they remain unpaid, underpaid, and in most cases unemployed. These are the youth that I will work with through an initiative dubbed Twende Kazi. My entire vision cannot be exhausted in the few minutes I have on this floor. I'm inspired by a little-known pre-colonial activist whose middle name Muthoni I share space in leadership and made to look like a burden. The handshake should be made a calling for women and not be a strenuous agenda for the government. To weaken your opponents or to paralyze them brings question to the
Now, the standing orders provide that you should be heard in total silence, but it does not at all give us a leeway to add you an additional minute. So we will proceed to the next one. And the top on the list here is Honorable Ole Sankok.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity which maiden speech. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And when I listened to the maiden speech of Honorable Passaris, it is a very good English. I was not getting a lot of words, but nonetheless, I understood. Honorable Speaker, I want to address the Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Ichungwa from Kikuyu. If blessed, please thank God. In this country, there are areas that we cannot plant sukuma wiki. There is areas in this country that we cannot plant maize because of the adverse weather, sometimes because of the animals. Some of us who border Masai Mara, you cannot cultivate anything because the animals, the wild beasts are there. And we are living in harmony with these animals for the sake of the whole country, since the highest foreign earner in this country is tourism. For the sake of tourism, for us to get foreign earning, we have decided to stay with those animals in Amboseli, in Masai Mara, and that is why we are marginalized. Honorable Speaker, protect me from Daktari. Honorable Speaker,
how do I protect a Daktari from
Honorable
Daktari,
Speaker, Honorable Shungwa should know that you cannot blow somebody else's candle so that yours can shine brighter. The candle of Equalization Fund is for the 14 counties. If the other counties feel that they are marginalized, they should look for their own funds, but not the funds of Equalization Fund. Why should we struggle so much during the constitution making process to make sure that that article 204 is there in the constitution? And now that we have killed the animal and we are dividing the animal, you are coming here and you are not in the hunting process. Let those counties that are blessed accept the blessing from God. Those that are marginalized, we are marginalized. Even if we had had an handshake, we did not have an handshake that is to share the Equalization Fund. No, the Equalization Fund remain for the marginalized counties. Honorable Speaker, what we should be asking now is that what was the intention of this money? This money was intended to bring up these marginalized counties in terms of roads, in terms of electricity, in terms of water and other social amenities. Honorable Speaker, we need to put this money into mega projects, projects that can bring change, projects that are tangible, projects that in future we will be able to get out of that marginalization. Because we were allocated this fund simply because we were marginalized. If we go and put this fund into creating awareness or in charge those employees and the staff that have used 400 million to inspect and to monitor projects that are not there, projects that are zero. So, Honorable Speaker, we want to say that for those counties that have prescribed and those constituencies that have told us, yes, we have understood you. Some of your places are marginalized. I've had some constituencies that borders Isiolo. The weather is also the same as Isiolo. It's okay, we have understood, but look for other funds. Don't look for this fund that is meant for the 14 counties. Let it remain to be for the 14 counties. This country have a budget, and they have a bigger budget. Why don't you bring another index? Why don't you bring another index of poverty index, for instance, of weather, for instance, so that we can have another fund for those who are affected by weather? Because Kenya itself is in one climatic region. It is in one weather region, one weather belt. So when you start now introducing the issue, oh, us, we border this region, including Kiambu here, saying that it is bordering Kajiado. You know, sometimes it beats logic, and we come here and pretend. The drafters of this constitution were well informed when they put marginalized counties into 14, the marginalized areas. But when now we can now start pretext in this house to an extent that Kibera is now to be included in the marginalization fund, it beats the logics. Let us have this fund given to the counties that were targeted by Article 204 of our Constitution. And if you want to amend that one, you need a referendum. Wachana na maneno. Leave this issue of leave these issues of referendum of creating position. Let us go to this referendum of amending Article 2.
Speaker, they told us that when the Katiba passes, that what they are going, and Honorable Member was there, so he can prove. He told me, and I remember the Honorable President telling me at that time, that passes, we will get boats if boats is what you have. As we are speaking several years after the Constitution, there are no boats to Remba Island, Ringiti Island, and the first ever school that was built in Sukuru Island since the advent of man on earth was done by me. The school only has one class, and I'm hopefully going to do many other classes. Madam Speaker, I do not know what you can consider marginalization if in this era and time you still have islands without schools. If you still have areas, if I go to Mfangano Island on the plateau, Madam Speaker, I remember some people one day when I put a photo of when I was traveling up the plateau on a motorbike, and then somebody was saying, but honorable member, why are you not wearing a helmet? Those are luxury that people in Nairobi can talk about helmets. In my area, even that affording that motorbike is a luxury. In most of my areas, I think as members, we need to go visit each other's constituencies so we understand when we are talking about marginalization. When I go up the plateau, I walk for more than 1 hour because there are areas you reach and you can't even use a motorbike, Madam Speaker. I went to a place called Mawanga Beach Primary School. They do not even have a class. The teacher stays, the staff room is also the house of the teacher, and is class 1, 2, and 3 in one school. Why? Because even the money I'm given with CDF is not enough to deal with the classrooms that I have in Mbita constituency, or right now Suba North constituencies. So I would support areas that are marginalized, like Mandera and Garissa, but we must take into cognizance that there are other areas in the country that have also been marginalized, like my constituency. And unless we are talking about issues that are pertinent and attach our life, we don't want to go the way Madam Speaker, I've just come back from Rwanda and Germany. And I said this at the funeral service of my good friend and colleague, Honorable Grace Kipchoim, that I want to thank this country and even the president yesterday for what he talked about and the handshake and the apology that he gave to this country. But unless as a leadership we are genuine and honest and address the issues that actually touch this country, then we will one day go the Rwanda way. Let us stop playing politics with this country. Let us be genuine about the things that touch Kenya. A lot of people have been telling me, why am I quiet? When you see me quiet, it is because there are things that are touching me at a very personal level. Madam Speaker, I am a politician, yes, but I am also a human being. I am a woman. I am a human. And Madam Speaker, I want to say.
Honorable Millie. Just a moment, there is an intervention by the leader of majority. Order.
Chair, Honorable Miri said there are some things which have touched her that makes her to go quiet for some time. Can she have the pleasure of sharing with this House so that we can help her in those issues that have touched her?
Order, as long as the issue
yes,
is not
Madam
legislative,
Speaker.
Honorable Leader of Majority, you can meet Millie Odhiambo outside and she can explain to you. If they are not a legislative.
Yes, Madam Speaker.
But if they are legislative or anything that you think.
Madam Speaker, I don't have a problem sharing.
Unless you want to share with them.
No, I don't have a problem sharing. I have my own personal issues, which are not the ones that are ahead. Like I have a brother who is sick. But that is not what is touching me. What is touching me is when I remember a little boy who was shot dead in this country. What touches me is when I remember people who are shot in front of me in this country. Madam Speaker, if we don't take action as a country, we are going to take this country a wrong direction. So, Madam Speaker, if the majority leader has asked me, what has made me quiet? That is what has made me quiet. As a country, we need to be serious. Let us stop playing politics. And if there are issues of equalization, if there are issues of equalization that are making people feel bad in this country, then we must address them. We cannot have 5 years, every 5 years, every cycle of 5 years, coming here and saying people died. Let's get on, let's move on. We are tired of talking about moving on. We must address this country and play politics that my friend Grace Kipchoim played. When I first met her, I met her when we were on a platform of ODM. She came as a member of URP. And she campaigned on the same platform with us in Baringo South. Why can't we do that kind of politics in this country? I am tired as Millie Odhiambo, maybe not as the MP from Beta, but as a human being, Millie Odhiambo, I am tired of seeing people dying in this country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well, and very well. And The Leader of Majority, thank you. I'm sure now you're comfortable, and Millie Odambo, we're grateful for that. The member, order. These two members today, I don't know what is happening. Honorable Pukosa and the Honorable, what do you, I don't want to
Madam
use the name.
Speaker.
No, Honorable Pukosa, no. You are not to speak, but I was just concerned because today, but you don't shout to have a point of order.
Understanding Order 95, Madam Speaker. Because you see, when you look at this bill, we still have the committee of the whole House to go so that we can be able to appropriate this money. We finish, so let's ask the mover to reply so that we can go to the committee of the whole House. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable, because at least you're procedurally in your standing orders, 95, very well. And of course, I didn't know what you were trying to raise, but allow me, at my own discretion, give one person, just one more person on the request. This has been there, the member for Taita, and other members, so that we come back to, as you make your decision too, because I'd read, yes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. With the indulgence, I'm getting an opportunity to speak on this touchy motion on equalization. Madam Speaker, I've been sitting here quite the whole afternoon waiting for this opportunity because as a member of Budget and Appropriation Committee, I am very proud member of that committee this afternoon that we are able to discuss matters that are very close to the heart of the 14 counties. But because of time, Madam Speaker, I would want to shorten my speech, my contribution on this matter, because a lot of members feel that we must have quorum to pass this appropriation. This is one thing that, as a country, we must be serious on. I want to say, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Ngeno, I was almost using my discretion because you are the second here. Yeah, and then so that you contribute, but now you are getting out of order. Don't shout to the Leader of Majority, and if you have to do, you can get close to him and consult if it's a consultation. The honorable member, just carry up.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This Article 204 of the Constitution, Madam Speaker, the drafters of this Constitution had in mind counties that were truly marginalized. We cannot sit in this House this afternoon and pretend we do not understand or appreciate marginalization in this country. The areas in this country, Madam Speaker, that for many years since independence have not enjoyed the national cake in this country because of one thing, and this is what I want to concur with the Majority Leader when he talked about centralization. These are issues around centralization. We've had before the new constitution, Madam Speaker, some of these 14 counties, out of some of the counties in this country, could not benefit at all from the centrality of the Nairobi government by that time. And that's why we're saying the drafters created an article that will bring these counties at par with the rest of the country, Madam Speaker. And that's why, Madam Speaker, it really hurts.
Honorable member, I just gave you like 5 minutes, just finish up, because the Honorable Pukose was on point of order. You can just finish so that we get it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Two things I would say before I end my contribution. Number one, 20 years was a period that was mentioned in the Constitution, that Equalization Fund will be with us for 20 years. It would be so naive of this House today to trash a policy that was drafted in February 2013 by one Kenyan who is renowned, Mika Cheserem, as the chairman of Commission of Revenue Allocation. In their wisdom, they came up with these 14 counties. Today, we cannot imagine, we cannot sit here and pretend that we do not know that Taita, Taveta, Lamu, Turkana, and northeastern counties are marginalized. We should not sit here today and imagine that we need to bring in Kiambu, we need to bring in Mbita, we need to bring in. This is an issue that if this country is to be, and yesterday the president had a very good speech when he spoke about handshake. I think the other counties need to extend the hand of friendship to these 14 counties because we have stood in this country for many years. My county, for instance, I have only 2 kilometers of road. And yet, this afternoon, I'm hearing pockets, sub-locations that are being referred in some counties that we know are privileged. Madam Speaker, we must be serious as a country. We must choose to mend fences so that counties that are mentioned in the first policy must continue for the next 20 years if we are to achieve any meaningful reconciliation of this country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, honorable members. Honorable members, following the request by the Honorable Pukose, from where I sit, honorable members, the House takes a vote, and of course, it stood on a standing order number 95. And I'm aware his neighbor, Honorable Ngeno, they are not in good terms because Honorable Ngeno wanted to contribute. But you see, the Speaker has no choice but to put the question to the House. It is the House to take up the question. And the question is whether the mover is to be called to reply. Will as many as of this opinion say aye? As many as of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Mover to reply.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and maybe just for the sake of those members who have not been able to contribute, I beg to reply, but it's also important, Honorable Speaker, to let members know that in the next order of business after the committee of the whole House on the presidential speech, members can still speak about equalization as they debate the president's speech. Therefore, the debate on this has not been curtailed. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I beg to reply.
You beg to reply. Clerk, we have the numbers? Order, Honorable Ngeno, order. Honorable Ngeno, order. And I must repeat and maybe remind you, when the Speaker is upstanding, you freeze. Which you are doing, yes, thank you. You are working. Anyway, order, members, honorable members, I put the question, which is that the Equalization Fund Appropriation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 16 of 2018, be now read a second time. Will as many as are on this opinion say aye? As many as are contrary opinion say nay? There is have it. Honorable Ngeno, now you can move. Thank you. Next order.
Order number 13, Committee of the Whole House.
Order members, honorable members, who are in the committee of the whole House to consider the supplementary appropriation number 2 bill, National Assembly Bill number 15 of 2018.
Clauses 2, 3, 4, and 5.
I propose the question which is at clauses 2, 3, 4, and 5 be parts of the bill. Honorable members, there are no amendments to this, and so I put the question, which is that clauses 2, 3, 4, and 5 be part of the bill. Will as many as are of the opinion say aye? As many as are contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next clause.
First schedule.
I propose a question which is that the first schedule be part of the bill. I can see an amendment. Chairperson?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to move the amendment to the first schedule, that the first schedule be amended as provided in the order paper. And basically, we're just reducing the money that had been appropriated for the Ruaraka land. And B is just effecting the consequential amendment to the relevant schedules and the total sum approved accordingly. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Members, I propose a question which is that the first schedule be amended as proposed by the chair. The Leader of Majority.
Chair, this House is making it very, very clear that this House will not be a rubber stamp. It cannot sanitize a payment that has a lot of issues. So what the House is doing this afternoon is to tell the Minister for National Treasury that under Article 223, you paid 1.5 billion to some crooks, and until the Lands Committee finishes its investigation, that amount of money remains an illegality in the Budget and Appropriation Committee. So we want to make sure that no money will be appropriated illegally, particularly when the House is aware that that money has certain issues. So we're waiting for the chair of Lands Committee to bring the report.
Thank you. I see no other comments to this, and I therefore move to put the question, or members, which is that the first schedule be amended as proposed by the chair. Will as many as are of this opinion say aye? As many as are contrary opinion say nay? Honourable members, the ayes have it. Next.
Second schedule.
I propose a question which is that the second schedule be part of the bill. No amendments to this. And so I move to put the question which is that the second schedule be part of the bill. Will as many as are of this opinion say aye? And as many as of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Title.
Honourable members, I propose a question which is that the title be the title to the bill. No amendments to this, and I therefore put the question which is that the title be the title to the bill. Will as many as are of this opinion say aye? And as many as of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 1.
I propose a question which is that clause 1 be part of the bill. Honourable members, no amendments to this clause, and I therefore move to put the question, which is that clause 1 be part of the bill. Will as many as are of this opinion say aye? And as many as of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
So let's look at the...
Thank you, honourable members. These are the amendments to that bill, and we report. I request the mover to report. The mover to report.
Honorable Chairperson, I beg to move that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the Equalization Fund Appropriation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 16 of 2018, and its approval thereof with the one amendment.
Honourable members, I put the question for reporting, which is that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the Supplementary Appropriation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 15 of 2018, and its approval thereof with amendments. Will as many as are of this opinion say aye? And as many as of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Order, honourable members. We are now... Honourable members, now we move to the other bill, which is the Committee of the Whole House on the Equalization Fund, Appropriations Bill, National Assembly Bill number 16 of 2018.
Clauses 2, 3, and 4.
Members, I propose a question which that clauses 2, 3, and 4 be part of the bill. There are no amendments to this, and I therefore move to put the question to the clauses, which is that clauses 2, 3, and 4 be part of the bill. Will as many as are of this opinion say aye? As many as of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Schedule.
I propose a question which is that the schedule be the schedule of the bill. Again, there are no amendments on our members to this, and I therefore move to put the question which is that the schedule be the schedule of the bill. Will as many as are of this opinion say aye? And as many as of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Title.
I propose a question which is that the title be the title to the bill. Again, honourable members, there are no amendments to the title, and I therefore move to put the question, which is that the title be the title to the bill. Will as many as are of this opinion say aye? And as many as of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 1.
Honourable members, I propose a question, which is that clause 1 be the clause 1 to the bill, be part of the bill. Oh yes, again, there are no amendments to this by the chair, and I therefore move to put the question, which is that clause 1 be part of the bill. Will as many as are of this opinion say aye? And as many as of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Let us have the mover to move the reporting. The honourable members, I put the question for reporting to the Supplementary Appropriation Bill, which is at the committee. No, we are through with the supplementary. Now we are in the equalization point of correction, honourable members. Honourable members, I put the question for reporting, which is that the committee do report to the House its considerations of the Equalization Fund, Appropriation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 16 of 2018, and its approval thereof without amendments. Will as many as are of this opinion say aye? As many as of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order members, Honorable Leader of Majority, we bowed while you were making some side comments. So I now call upon the chairperson. Chairperson.
To be on mic, it's just. Honourable Speaker, I beg to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Supplementary Appropriation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 15 of 2018, and approved the same with amendments.
Very well. Mover.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the House do agree with the committee in the said reports, and I request Honorable Sarah Korere to second the motion for agreement with the reports of the Committee of the Whole House.
Honorable Sarah.
I second.
Order. I go on to propose the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee of the said report. Should I go ahead? Yes. I go on to put the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I go on to call the mover to move the third reading. Honorable Ishungu, the chairperson, to move the third reading.
Oh.
Mover, please. It is the mover.
Yeah. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Here comes Supplementary Appropriations Bill number 16 of 2018 be now read a third time. I also request Honorable Kenta, member for Narok North, to second.
Honorable Mover, will you just repeat it again for the record and put it right?
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Supplementary Appropriations Bill, National Assembly Bill number 15 of 2018, be now read a third time, and request the Honorable Kenta, member for Narok North, to second.
Honorable Kenta.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg to second.
Other members, I go on to propose a question, which is the Supplementary Appropriation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 15 of 2018, be now read a third time. Honorable members, I go on to put the question, and I confirm that we have the requisite quorum for that, which is that the Supplementary Appropriation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 15 of 2018, be now read a third time. Will as many as of that...
The Equalization Fund Appropriation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 16 of 2018, and approve the same without amendments.
The mover.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. I also request Honorable Pukose to second the motion for agreement with the report of the committee of the whole House.
Honorable Pukose.
Honorable Speaker, although I'm not a beneficiary, but my colleagues are benefiting, so I second.
You are benevolent seconder. Other members, I go on to propose a question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. I go on to put the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Mover.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Equalization Fund Appropriation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 16 of 2018, be now read a third time. I also request Honorable Kioni, member for Ndaragwa, to second.
Honorable Kioni.
As I second, Madam Speaker, I want to say that I second, but they left out Daragwa, and Daragwa needed to be part of this. Without Daragwa, I can't see the fairness in it, but I second.
Very well, member for Ndaragwa. I go on to propose a question, which is that the Equalization Fund Appropriation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 16 of 2018, be now read a third time. I go on to put the question, which is that the Equalization Fund Appropriation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 16 of 2018, be now read a third time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
A bill for an act of parliament to authorize the issue of sums of money out of the Equalization Fund and its application toward the service of the year ending 30th June 2018, and to appropriate that sum for certain public basic services and for connected purposes. Order number 14, debate on the presidential address, day 2.
So I believe we are resuming debate that had already begun. Order members, anyone exiting to exit quietly. Let's start with the member for Kinango. Honorable Thuku Kwenya.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for this opportunity to contribute to the presidential address, State of the Nation, yesterday. I wish to say from the onset that I was well pleased and I'm well pleased with the presidential address. the message that he was able to send across the country is that now we've reconciled, and now it's back to work, back to business, back to planning, back to doing things that we're elected to do as members of this house, and inside and outside the house. And I want to applaud the unity that he exhibited yesterday by extending and by actually briefing the house on how he was able to meet the opposition leader, or the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, who played a big role in this country in democratization process. And this is a lesson to all of us, that as much as we campaigning and doing all sort of things, as we seek for votes for the divides that we stand for, we should be careful about tomorrow, because these battles do not last. At times, the damage is irreparable, because, of course, during electioneering period, we found there are so many people who lost their properties, their lives, and stuff like that. But then, going forward, as a country, we should engage in kind of campaigns and even talk that is more of bringing the country together, cohesive kind of politics, because that's what is going to keep us together. On the issue of development and the achievement of the government, I want to applaud the Jubilee administration for what they've been able to do in the past 1 year, despite the fact that there was a lot of politics. We were able to achieve some significant growth in terms of our GDP. And that tells us something, that going forward, even as much as if we can do this when there was such kind of hot kind of politicking, then if we to pull together now, we can do a 2-digit growth of our economy, and that is possible. And therefore, I just want to support the report and to address even my fellow colleagues and tell them that we need to pull together to achieve the 4-agenda legacy plan that the president have, because that is what we're going to be counted for. Not the many insults that we throw at each other, not the hatred, not the sideshows. It is how well we're going to address the issue of health, how well we're going to address the issue of manufacturing, how well we're going to address the issue of affordable housing, and how well we're going to address the issue of food security. I come from a constituency whose economic activity is farming. We have a lot of food that goes to waste because of poor roads.
Yesterday. Madam Speaker, of course, the first and critical topic, the main agenda of that has been highlighted from yesterday and today, and I think rightly so, is about national healing and reconciliation. It was very humbling to see His Excellency the President actually, personally, and in front of everyone and in the nation, say sorry for whatever contribution he may have done to the irreconciliation, if there is such a word, in the country, and the hurting that Kenya has been undergoing in the last 1 year or since the election. It was very humbling, yet it was such a pace setter to the national healing and reconciliation agenda in our country. Madam Speaker, this country, from experience, really has to ask itself very fundamental questions about politics and economy, because we have had situations where a section of this country increasingly feels marginalized and not part of government, increasingly over successive years. And we must ask ourselves, what is important? Is it politics? Is it economy? Because there's also another section of Kenya that feels that what we should be focusing on is food for our people. It's jobs for our people. But there is also another section that feels it's not just jobs and livelihood, it's also a sense of inclusion, a sense of involvement, a sense of being part and parcel of government. And so the nexus and how we put the two into tension, both the economy and politics, this country has to ask itself that fundamental question. And I think that question is what the president, that journey of asking that question was started yesterday by His Excellency the President. As you know, Madam Speaker, both the President and the Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister, have appointed or have nominated a team of persons in our country to deal with this process. I think it is important we give that team full support so that then they help us as a country to have a national dialogue, national engagement, a national process that asks ourselves those very fundamental questions for our country. The President did also mention about what government has done the last many years, especially around infrastructure. This country has transformed in every sense, especially around infrastructure. Around railway, for the first time in 100 years, we have the standard gauge railway. We have over 3,000 kilometers of road done, and the President did indicate yesterday there are 5,000 more to be done. There is the issues of power. I was reading somewhere that Kenya is now 8th in the world in terms of geothermal power, although we have to still engage on about the tariffs and the cost of that power. And so there has been consistent investment in what I would call the bedrock of production. But then we must quickly translate that into what that means to real families, what that means to young people who want jobs. And I think, and I guess that is why His Excellency the President's focus now is around manufacturing. So that then these roads means jobs to our people. So that the railway line means livelihood to a person deep into the deeper part of Kenya. So that the power, the connection of power means security, means jobs for our people, means production. And so we must move from the bedrock investment to actually production, so that then our people produce and mean something. Allowed agriculture, which is one of the pillars, that the 4 pillars. Agriculture, it's one of the areas that, Madam Speaker, I think this country is going to find lots of livelihood and jobs around areas of agriculture, where we have our young people investing and farming so that it can create jobs, allowed healthcare, allowed security, and allowed the free trade area across Africa that was signed in Rwanda sometimes a few weeks ago. I think all these aggregate puts Kenya into perspective and into the map in Africa and in the world. Madam Speaker, I thank you for that opportunity.
The Honorable Waweru Kiarie. Honorable Ranking Member, I'll come to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I have to say that I was honored to have been a member of this Honorable August House when His Excellency the President delivered this most inspiring speech in this occasion of the State of the Nation address. And if the speech of the President were to be captured in one phrase or one theme, I think that theme would be that Kenya will emerge. And Madam Speaker, I have to say that I am very convinced and persuaded and inspired that Kenya will actually emerge. Madam Speaker, I did observe and note that His Excellency the President started by first paying a tribute to my childhood hero and also a champion of democracy in this country, Honorable KSN Matiba, and for that I do applaud the President. Madam Speaker, I thought that it was good that the Honorable President did note that there has been prolonged drought and prolonged electioneering process, and the double tragedy of the drought and the prolonged election process did deal a severe blow to major sectors in this economy. However, Madam Speaker, His Excellency the President quickly noted that despite the electioneering process and the drought situation in Kenya, the economy of this country stayed resilient. And for that, we have to applaud ourselves as Kenyans, that we were not derailed by this long electioneering process, neither were we very hard hit by the calamities that were natural, and as such, we carried the normal Kenyan spirit of resilience. Mr. Speaker, I have to say that my big takeout out of what His Excellency the President spoke about in his State of the Nation address was that we are now living in a new era. Our very able and senior Member of Parliament, Mheshimiwa Angwenyi,
will tell us that Kenya has gone through different epochs. We have had a post-independent epoch. We have had a post-multi-party epoch. We have had a post-constitutional epoch. And I stand here and declare that we are now living in the post-handshake epoch. And in this era, I say that I do applaud the president for coming up and inspiring as a nation, us as a nation, that we are actually going to emerge.
Alongside the fact that this country has continued to grow in spite of what it is that we went through last year. Mr. Speaker, let me just say one thing. One of the three comments that I really picked from the presidential speech was that the economic growth did not slow down. It may have done, but not in any want to go through every 5 years. And these are the institutions that we need to continue strengthening and making sure that they function even when politics are not functioning, or our behavior gets a little bit wayward like it did last year. And Mr. Speaker, it's for that reason that I would want to speak to the activities or the workings of the Commission for Revenue Allocation. As the chairman of Constitution Implementation and Oversight Committee, I would want to say that we will be calling them to our committee, because I sit here and I believe that the way they are implementing the provisions of Article 204 is completely out of the spirit that was there in Naivasha. Mheshimiwa Mili was there, spoke to it a bit, and I was in Naivasha with her. What they are doing is completely outside what we thought or intended for that provision. And even as you sit there, Mr. Speaker, sir, I know you come from Laikipia. Your own county is not in that equalization formula. How would you leave Laikipia? How is it that we do not have any area of Ukabani within those 14 counties? Leave alone Daragwa, which has been marginalized even before independence. I mean, there's something that is totally wrong in the way they are looking at that, and it is only fair that we call them as a committee, and any member of the House would want to come and sit in, would invite them. This was never intended to be that way. In this country, we have pockets of people who have been marginalized. The fact that we mention the word marginalization under that article allows others to just define marginalization in the traditional way. But it is important that we get to understand that and go to the Hansard of Naivasha. What is it that we said? And the reason why we never put counties under that article was because we agreed from time to time marginalized areas must continue being redefined. So even as we agree with what was tabled today, we look forward to another definition in the next financial year. Because I believe, and I want to say it, I wouldn't sit here and allow that kind of a definition to continue, because it continues in the process of doing this, you're actually marginalizing others. Mheshimiwa from Dagoretti has just reminded me, this is the same approach that was used when we said the girl child need to be affirmed in this country. We have affirmed the girl child and we're happy about it. But in the process, we've lost the boy child. Now we have to go back and look for the boy child because we implemented that policy in the wrong way. That is exactly what CRI is doing now with this equalization fund. In the process of what they are doing, they will marginalize others more, and we will not heal. The spirit that we saw with the president yesterday will be lost, because you cannot hurt others as you try to heal others. And even as I go through that, I think I will say more when that comes. Let me talk about a little bit about the handshake, and we had it here yesterday. As we shake new hearts, Mr. Speaker, let us remember there are other old hearts that we shook before. We do not want to lose friends as we gain others. It is important that we build on friends. So the formula that we use to bring other friends on board, let us make sure that it does not throw other old friends away. You end up being the loser if you lose your old friends. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Angwen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance to contribute to this important speech. Mr. Speaker, I've been in Parliament for some time now, and I've listened to presidential speeches in this Parliament. But the yesterday's speech by His Excellency the President was one of the most positive statements ever made in this House. It was positive in the sense that the president seeks to unite the Kenyans. So that my sister there cannot be told you are not a Kikuyu. We all remain to be Kenyans. When I see you as a Kenyan. I don't see you as a Kisi or a Kikuyu or a Luo. When somebody is appointed to a job, we don't seek to find out his or her ethnicity. We know it's a Kenyan. Is that Kenyan qualified or not? That's the message I got from the president. The other aspect which I got from the president was that he is prepared to fight two things, two issues which have crippled this country's development: ethnicity and corruption. Ethnicity, such that if I'm appointed to a position of an important position, whereby I should look at the entire country, I tend to look at my county. That people who are appointed positions tend to look at their county and their ethnicity. People who are appointed positions believe that they have been appointed to go and make money, not to serve the people, but make money. That is, in some areas of this country, if you are appointed to a very senior position, especially where you disperse resources, and you retire not very rich, people will say you are a fool. You were in that position for so long, and you never made the money. Which means our culture is encouraging corruption. Those few remarks, I beg to commend the president.
Honorable Hassan Rehema.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipatia fursa hii, na nasimama kumpa kongole Mheshimiwa Rais kwa hotuba yake aliyotoa jana, lakini pia nasikitika kusema kuwa watu wa Tana River jana, wakati Mheshimiwa Rais anazungumza masuala ya barabara katika maendeleo, walikuwa wanatarajia Mheshimiwa Rais awatajie kuwa barabara ya Tana River ambao ilianza kujengwa nikiwa darasa la 3 miaka 50 tangu tupate uhuru, hatuna barabara nzuri. Juzi nikitoka Bura nikienda Garissa mpande wa Madogo, ilinibidi niogelee mashimo 7 katika hayo maji ambayo hiyo barabara ilivyokatika. Inasikitisha sana. Mheshimiwa Rais ako na mipango mizuri kwa Wakenya, lakini baadhi yetu ufisadi umetufanya hatuhurumiani. Nashukuru kwa waliotoa hoja leo ya fumu. Isiwe sisi ni watu wa kulia wakati wa ukame na watu wa kulia wakati wa mvua. Tupate suluhu ya kudumu. Mimi naomba wale wahusika wa idara ya maji, hayo maji ambayo yamesahizi yametufanya tumeumia Tana River, ni maji yanaonyesha kutoka huku juu. Tafadhali tujengewe mababa huku katikati ndio maji yasitufikie, kwa sababu sisi tumeumia. Naomba kama mmoja wa kamati ya mazingira, tafadhali mkipanga msituache nyuma. Tana River iko Kenya. Sasa sisi tumepata uhuru kama vile wengine. Isiwe miaka 50 tangu tupate uhuru sisi tunalia shida kila siku. Namshukuru Mheshimiwa Rais hajatuchukia watu wa Tana River. Lakini namuomba Mheshimiwa Rais swala la handshake pia Tana River alihusishe. Maana inaonekana huu ni wakati wa kusameheana. Kuna watu waliopigana kabla kura za 2013 na baadhi yao wameoza jela, wameteseka jela, na ni watu wako na watoto, wako na mabibi. Watume watu wa tume ya uhusiano waje wazungumze na watu, wasameheane, na hata hao vijana pia wasamehewe. Mheshimiwa Rais, sauti yako ni kubwa, na najua ukisema unawasamehe hao vijana watasamehewa na watatoka jela, washughulikie watu wao. Asante.
Honorable Mutunga. Okay. Honorable Adagara Kahai. Very well. Okay, Honorable Sukuya Risa. Oh, at least him.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the President of the Republic of Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta, for shaking hands and bringing this country together. That unity is paramount to this country. A national healing and reconciliation is a very important issue to this country that everyone needs to feel that is part and parcel of this nation. And it will be prudent for all of us to enjoy the fruit of this country. And it is good to make sure that we'll all unite this country. And we love the president. We will hear you. We will bring our competitors closer to us so that this country will move forward as one people in one nation. I also want to commend that it is important for other politicians as our competitors, as well as the Honorable retired Prime Minister Raila Odinga, to do the same as what Honorable the President has said yesterday, that I'm sorry for anyone that I have uttered during election year, or I have said anything that will hurt anyone. It will be important for, even for the Honorable Raila, to do the same, so that all of us will move as one team. President Uhuru Kenyatta is a professor of politics, and he's a good teacher, let me say. Because I remember the other time, in the 2002, when he was a candidate for the KANU at then, and when he was defeated, he agreed that Mwai Kibaki won election, and he joined hands as official opposition leader to work with the government. And as well as he had done in 2007, so that this country can be developed, and especially those areas that has been lived for a long time. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, sir, competition is a healthy process, that we should not fight over election in this country. When you are defeated, agree, let us agree. Let us compete, and after election or before election, it is so prudent and important for us that to remember that we are brothers and sisters after election. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, sir, today we pass the Equalization Fund, and we are happy for that. But it is good to remember that marginalized areas must also be considered in this Equalization Fund. The 14, and I just beg for another 1 minute, Mr. Speaker, sir, as I finish. That other marginalized areas, as we go for the 14 counties to benefit in this funds, the 12 billion, it is important the areas. For example, Kajiado County, which is not a part of the 14, Kajiado County, Baringo, Laikipia North, then Deia, where I bordered in Kiambu. The situation those people that face is just equal to what the people of Magadi are facing, where people of Magadi are depending on other towns in Tanzania from the Lake Natron. But they are not actually, people are not coming to those towns to buy their food. So it is so important that as we heal the country, let us.
President's address yesterday, which has continued to be much more characterized by hatred and expression of hatred and name-calling and indeed all manner of violence that we begin to see even in our country. As we watch the social media, we see that everybody now begins to show not only violence, but that the violence truly seems to be driven by some deep-rooted issues. Secondly was the issue of the framework of devolution, which in a way is a very, very fundamental core of good governance, because devolution was indeed applauded in the Constitution as an opportunity to give the citizens the voice, to bring them closer to the leadership, and indeed to help ensure that their voice can be heard. And finally was the call by the President in his address that we need to come together as leaders at all levels, and that Kenyans are at a point where we all must engage in deeper reflection, because Kenya has a long way to go. I'd like to say, Mr. Speaker, that at the outset, when we look at where Kenya is, we can indeed see that issues continue to bedevil the Kenyan populace at all levels, whether we are talking about the public service, and we begin to look at the manner in which the public service has space to get their work done, and sometimes even get to distinguish between the public service and, in a way, the political space. Mr. Speaker, I speak as someone who has served as the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Gender and Social Development during the coalition government, and who therefore had the privilege of getting to see just the enormous opportunity that exists if we can build and ensure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Moroto, member for Kapenguria.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to join my colleagues by congratulating the President, His Excellency the President, for the good and inspiring speech that he gave us yesterday. Mr. Speaker, some of us have been here and we have had several presidents. I heard from Moi during his time, I heard from Kibaki, and now Honorable Uhuru about for the last 5 years, and now. There is nothing much. We are good. This is a talking nation. We like articulating so much on writing. Then you read an essay that if it was marks to be awarded, Kenyans could be so good on that. But coming to implementation, Mr. Speaker, is a big problem. Because we can talk, I remember last time when the President came here, he brought a list of shame, especially the corrupt people. But nothing, as we speak now, that has been done. Maybe we can blame the anti-corruption group, because I think they are also more corrupt than even those culprits or those people who they were given to deal with, Mr. Speaker. Because I come from West Pokot. This is an area which was, during colonial time, it was a closed district. And that's why it affected the suffering that Turkana are now getting started from West Pokot, because that was a gateway. For you to go to Turkana, you have to start with West Pokot, then you go to that place. Mr. Speaker, after the colonial time, the other successful government. Nothing happened until when we realized the other day, this is devolution. That's where you can now get something like when we talk of water. That is now the county government. The money, the little money given to them, you can see something. The little money MPs were given through CDF, you can realize that there is something here. But what we passed today, I remember even the other year, I gave some areas water, boreholes, I gave some areas roads, and you can even see from the paper today, which is here, when you talk of West Pokot, you'll get those things, but nothing is going up to now. And yet we are saying the money was allocated last year, and nothing is taking place. Even now, I'm a member of this budget and appropriation committee. When we had a meeting with even the minister up to midnight, he was about a bit resisting even the CDF to give out. But it was easy to allocate money to some corrupt areas. In fact, there was a plot thick in thicker where they were talking all the time. But I asked, who is this man or who is the owner of this plot that the name cannot even be mentioned? Good, I saw the other day in the Star, they were now describing about what was happening there. And then also there is these issues of some items that were given to our hospitals, especially the level 5 hospitals, where Kapenguria is included. You don't even get those machines, but you can get in the papers saying that the Kapenguria was given this one here, Trans-Nzoia Kitale was given this one here, Kakamega, this level 5 hospitals. So, Mr. Speaker, I think Kenya has to do something. Like now, when we are really praising this kind of greetings, personally, I said we should not praise murderers. Because if you continue praising murderers, how many people died the other day? How many people are still even in the hospital and nobody cares about them? But when somebody comes up and says, okay, I've done this one here, that's when you hear of the praises. While Kenyans are suffering. We don't care with one person. You can go. How many were there and they have gone? And Kenya is still there. Even our time will come and we go. But what are we leaving behind? That even those people who will be there will still remember about us. We can still even get the great men. And in fact, I praise who started the Equalization Fund. Because this guy had to think on how to elevate areas which were marginalized to come together to the other level. But you see now other languages are coming in. Oh, this other area was left, this other area was left. Mr. Speaker, I really support, I praise the president because this is a guy when he started. In fact, some of us are seeing something good, but we are now worried that this time is coming to an end. If it were me, we could never give him more time to go ahead other than other idiots that might come later. Thank you.
Very well. Honorable Garane, member for Ragdera.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to the President's address. From the onset, I wish to state that I like to recommend or commend the President's speech for his boldness, for his honesty, in regards to the current situation of the country. Mr. Speaker, you will realize that the president of this nation, holding the highest office in the land, was bold enough to ask for forgiveness from the Kenyan people. He is doing so because in one way or the other, during his campaign period, he surely knows that he has wronged someone in one way or the other. That was statesmanship. That shows the desire and the goodwill he has for this country. Mr. Speaker, in his speech, the president passionately talks about the Big Four agenda. The president knows that his legacy is pegged on the success of the Big Four agenda in this country. When he talks about the empowerment of the National Administrative Service, the president cares so much about the security of this nation. He knows that by empowering the National police, and the National Administrative Service, this country will be at peace. The president's speech also touched on regional stability. He talked so much about the instability in Somalia, because Kenya is a regional leader when it comes to peacekeeping. Mr. Speaker, you know that our forces, our men in blue, our men and women in uniform serve every part of this world. They have been deployed in Sierra Leone, they have been deployed in Sudan, they have been deployed in many parts of this country, in this continent. They have been deployed in many parts of this continent. You realize that the president is so passionate about motivating or staking to mitigate these ravaging floods in this country. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, Grufa Primary School in my constituency will remain closed because the whole village was displaced. The school compound was submerged with water. Students cannot go back. They cannot go back to learning. Now we are thinking of doing a makeshift structures 20 kilometers away from where they have been displaced. It's therefore very unfortunate that the president did not touch on what measures he is going to do or the government is doing to mitigate all these measures. That is my biggest disappointment. Mr. Speaker, let me also say something about the Equalization Fund. I think what members of this Honorable House needs to understand is that we need to consider the spirit of the Constitution rather than, we need to consider the letter of the Constitution rather than the spirit of the Constitution. When the framers of this Constitution were coming up with marginalization areas, there were areas that were historically marginalized. If you compare locations, sublocations in Lake Dera to sublocations in other parts of this country, Mr. Speaker, that is not comparable. Back for one more minute. I need to talk about, to go back to the ravaging floods. What has happened is that whenever it rains very heavily, the communities living downstream in the Tana always face the greatest problem in these floods.
Well, member, point done, point made. I'm sure point is well made. Honorable, to my left, Honorable Gogo.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much for this time. I want to also join my group of colleagues to applaud the President on his excellent and moving speech. For the first time in the history of this country, we have had a situation where members of Parliament leave Parliament smiling out of a speech that has been made by the President of the Republic. And I want to take this particular opportunity to thank the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta for showing leadership. You can never lead if you don't allow yourself to be led. And yesterday, I had, for the first time in the history of this country, a sitting president asking people for forgiveness. Oftentimes, we think that when we ask for forgiveness, we look weak, but strength is found in meekness. And I want to applaud the president for telling Kenyans that where he went wrong, he asked for forgiveness. And personally, I would also want to take this golden opportunity to also, as a politician, ask for forgiveness for any of the factors or areas that we offended as a coalition. I want to say that the president's speech was very well articulated. And for him to bring the Big Four agenda to the House and talk to members as a friend that he should be supported was a very noble idea. It is in this House that we can come up with good policies and laws that are going to support the president's dream. How I sympathize with naysayers, how I sympathize with people who cherish and flourish in doom, how I sympathize with people who want to sit in their coaches and see Kenyan youth die because of politics. That is now behind us. We want development. That is now behind us with this handshake. I'm only empathizing with myself and a few of my colleagues that the president, as he was leaving the house, he only went and continued shaking hands of people whose hands he has been shaking all along. He went ahead and only shook the hands of his friends and colleagues who strategically positioned themselves to greet the president. He ought to have greeted new hands. He ought to have shaken other hands that he has never shaken before. All the same, we are looking forward to a day when His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta will come and step in Rangwe constituency, where he has never come since he was born, because of the handshake. I'm hoping and praying and waiting for the day that they are going to come with the Right Honorable, the People's President, Raila Amolo Odinga, to Rangwe constituency, so that this handshake can be devolved. This handshake can go to the ground, and people of Rangwe who never participated on the 26th general election can shake the hand of the president, give him his blessings and tell him, sir, we love you and we are going to support your Big Four agenda. And as a member of parliament for Rangwe constituency, I must mainstream all my proposals to support the Big Four agenda of the president. It is important that we go back to the basic human needs. We are talking about housing. We are talking about food. And as we talk about Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta can come and launch this pineapple factory. Also, if they could devolve the handshake to make the mother of Akinyi and Adhiambo get water, if we could have women not deliver on their road, on the way, this would be good for Kenya. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity, and I applaud the President for his excellent speech. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you.
Shall we have now Honorable Tobiko Pesi, member for Kajiado East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for this opportunity, and I arise to support the speech of the President yesterday in this Honorable House. Mr. Speaker, the President outlined a number of successes of his government and also the successes of the constitutional progress that we made from the 11th Parliament in trying to implement the new constitution. And Mr. Speaker, I support that a lot of progress has been made. That this time round, counties are a reality in this country because of devolution, and resources have been devolved to the grassroots, Mr. Speaker, beyond even the stipulated 15% that was in the Constitution. The President talked about the Huduma services that have been taken to Mashinani, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I don't really want to go through the whole thing because it may take my time before I make some one or two comments, Mr. Speaker. I will just say I support Mr. Speaker. But I would say, Mr. Speaker, that I would have wished that the President also talked to the nation about the current rains and the damage and the cost that it is going to cost this country on the infrastructure, particularly on roads, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, even as we prepare to go on recess, I do not know what roads we are going to use to go to our constituencies, Mr. Speaker, because we have no more roads, Mr. Speaker, particularly in constituencies that have never had tarmac, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when Mombasa Road closes because of the roads, there is no exit, Mr. Speaker. I have been talking about the Konza Isinya Road, Mr. Speaker, in my constituency that will provide a solution to the gridlock on Mombasa Road. I'm yet to be heard.
I expect this road to get into the budget, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have a lot of issues in our constituencies. The water that is running now, there are towns that have no water. Kitengela has no water, Mr. Speaker. And we expected to be told the measures that are going to be taken by the executive in order to have water harvested during these current rains. So that we don't only depend on Takaini, that Nairobi, Kajiado, and the other neighboring counties are depending on. That even Takaini is not collecting water, then Kenyans will, in Nairobi and in Kajiado, Kitengela, will have no water, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I know the Honorable Matiba has played a role in this country, and that is why he was recognized by His Excellency. But as a woman leader, Mr. Speaker, I also would have appreciated that the Honorable President would even acknowledge our member who is lying in the state right now, the Honorable Grace Kipchoim, who passed on. It's a struggle of a woman from Baringo, Mr. Speaker. A minute by the President would have done a lot, Mr. Speaker, to appreciate the work she has done, particularly to address the issue of security in her constituency, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we hope that this handshake is not only about two big men. We hope that this handshake is then going to bring peace into our country and economic. Mr. Speaker, I have places like Mashuru sub-county, and if you look at my constituency.
Very well, Honorable Tobiko. Honorable Mose John, member for Kitutu Masaba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me a chance also to contribute to this very critical motion. First and foremost, Mr. Speaker, sir, we want to congratulate His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, and the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga for their handshake. I am sure, Mr. Speaker, sir, that that is a good gesture for this country. And I also want to congratulate the President for actually apologizing as a sitting President and offering a reconciliatory tone to the people of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am sure that we have come from a very grueling electioneering period, a period that has seen our country become politically divided. But Mr. Speaker, sir, with the reconciliation that has come because of the handshake, I am gratified that now even the House seems to be united. Mr. Speaker, I know there is a lot of excitement about this handshake, and it's my sincere hope that this handshake is not going to be a handshake that is merely meant for the purpose of people joining hands and, you know, as it were, people joining hands in matters that will not help develop this country. I would also agree with one of the speakers that we want to see this reconciliation moving forward to reconcile all the involved stakeholders. We do not expect, Mr. Speaker, sir, to see a scenario where some people are being excited or some people are being elevated, while here at the same time we have people who have participated in ensuring that this country remains together. And therefore, as we welcome the reconciliation, our main focus should be on the serious and salient issues that are bedfiling this country. One, Mr. Speaker, sir, I had anticipated to see a serious address on the issue of the ravaging floods that we are experiencing in this country. I know for a fact that many of the schools have not opened because of the problem of floods. I had expected that we will have an address or a focus on that. Mr. Speaker, sir, I also want to believe that this address, this handshake, would ensure that we have an enabling environment that would ensure that the Big Four agenda for the president is achieved. Besides, Mr. Speaker, sir, I also want to see that all the parties involved are serious and committed to this handshake. Because what I have seen in the last few days is that there is excitement where some parties are feeling that they have been upgraded at the expense of others. As I therefore applaud the two leaders, I would also urge all the other leaders who are involved to make sure that we focus on empowering Kenyans. The youths of this country are unemployed. Chart way forward for the youth. Chart way forward for the other development agendas that we require. And Mr. Speaker, sir, at the end of the day, ensure that we are not having a handshake that would divide this country, but a handshake that would unite this country. With that, I commend the reconciliation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Before I get to my left, should we have Honorable Duale, member for Dadaab?
And thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to the speech by His Excellency the President yesterday. First of all, I want to start by commending our President yesterday for a wonderful speech, because that speech actually touched the hearts of all Kenyans who had the opportunity to hear it, whether in this House or through the media. And I want to say that among the issues His Excellency noted in his speech was the issue of security. Now, in respect of where I represent, which is the Dadaab constituency in Garissa County, we are a neighbor to the Republic of Somalia. And in his speech yesterday, the president actually here, and I want to go on record that the border between Somalia and Kenya has been closed for over 10 years. Yet, regular flights go from Nairobi to Mogadishu and other cities in Somalia. We have an ambassador, a Kenyan mission in Mogadishu. We have KDF forces in Somalia. We have many Kenyans in the hospitality industry, in many professions, health, education in Somalia. What really has surprised many of us from that region is the fact that the land border between Kenya and Somalia has remained closed for over a decade. Yet that closure is not truly a closure. We are losing revenue because the sugar and food commodities consumed in northeastern, or what was referred to as northeastern before, Garissa, Wajir, Mandera, none of it comes from through the other parts of Kenya. All of it comes from Somalia. Yet we are not collecting a single revenue from that importation of goods through the porous border of Somalia. We have also impoverished the people of northern Kenya, bordering Somalia, because they really depended on trade. The fact that there's no border trade has also made serious migration of the people of Northeast to the other parts of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, it is common knowledge that many people from Garissa, Wajir, and Mandera are today in Nairobi, in Mombasa, in Namanga, in Nakuru, in Eldoret, and every part of this country. That migration is a result of the closure of the border for the last decade. And it will continue to the extent that that place will become deserted. My appeal to His Excellency the President and the National Security Advisory Committee is to reconsider the issue of the closure of the border. I am sure even the security of this nation will improve once the border is open, because one of the issues that perpetuates insecurity is also poverty. The government of Kenya would have also collected revenue. I also want to say on his speech yesterday, that His Excellency, the issue of universal health coverage. In this country, we are talking about universal health coverage, and by the year 2022, we are targeting to cover at least 90% of the population. But what I see happening in many parts of this country is that the coverage which is being supported by some county governments is not really going to help the issue of universal coverage. It is important to know that there is no reason why governors should recruit those who are already sick into the through NHIF, because what that will do is that they will end up exhausting the funds money, and this is really not going to help. My appeal to the governors and other levels of government is to ensure as many citizens in a county and in this country so that the fund can have surplus, because the healthy ones will not need to get.
Very well. Very well. My left now, Honorable Moi, member for Longai. It's coming. It's coming in your neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to the President's speech. Mr. Speaker, the President began his substantive speech by acknowledging the importance of the Constitution, in that this Constitution gave birth to devolution, which resulted in county governments. We know that the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, is critical and very important, and devolution is what many Kenyans desired. They received devolution, Mr. Speaker, and because this devolution brings about, it decentralizes services, and it brings about development to many areas of this country that had not received development, Mr. Speaker. The President, Mr. Speaker, cited an increase in the monies that go from the national government to the counties. From 2013, it was about 210 billion to 327 billion by the year 2017-18. Mr. Speaker, these figures are impressive. But then the President also acknowledged that corruption, Mr. Speaker, is still a very lethal enemy in this country. And I quote, he says there are individuals who fraudulently and corruptly divert public resources to benefit themselves. Mr. Speaker, if we are to accept what the President had said, or the public, for the public, to accept and own these statements, Mr. Speaker, there must be political will. There must be political will so that we can stamp out this very lethal enemy. Corruption will kill Kenya if we do not tackle it. On the economic front, Mr. Speaker, we acknowledge what the President said, and we commend him for his big four agendas, namely universal health care. And in that, Mr. Speaker, he's wanted to bring to give everybody access to quality and affordable health care. And it was only the other day, Mr. Speaker, that we debated a report here on Kenyatta National Hospital. And in that report, Mr. Speaker, we saw how terrible the healthcare system is in Kenya. Kenyatta National Hospital is on the brink of collapse. They don't have equipment. They do not have enough medical personnel. So it was right for the President to comment on this, and that this universal healthcare, Mr. Speaker, has been expanded by incorporating more people under the NHIF schemes, Mr. Speaker. But we would like a situation, Mr. Speaker, where coverage is close to 100%. Because even if we cover 7.2 million, what happens to the other 30 million or so Kenyans who cannot afford health care? Mr. Speaker, healthcare in Kenya is extremely expensive. It is very, very expensive. And as a member of parliament, and I'm sure those honorable members that are here know that every time we go back to the constituencies, we have to go for Harambes to contribute for sick people and so forth. This issue, Mr. Speaker, has driven many families in Kenya to abject poverty. And also because it has driven, because the quality care in Kenya is not that excellent. A lot of lives are lost. This life should not be lost. So we pray, Mr. Speaker, the President talked about a vibrant economy that will create jobs so that people can be able to buy their homes. And, but in order for this economy to boom, Mr. Speaker, one part of the economy that has been neglected for too long is the manufacturing sector. I think for far too long, the manufacturing sector has contributed close to about 7% of GDP. But we need it to grow to about 15%. Manufacturing means export of goods. Manufacturing means more hard currencies. Manufacturing means more jobs to our fellow Kenyans. So I'll see the light there, Mr. Speaker. I would also like to commend the President for his approach in politics to talk to the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. They have put aside their differences so that unity can be promoted in this country. That was wonderful. We congratulate the President. We congratulate the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity.
Very well, honorable members, I can see there are actually 7 more members who would be keen and have registered interest to speak to this. But I'm afraid the House must rise. It is 7, actually a minute after 7. But just to remind us that, as you know, this speech gets to be debated for 4 days. We have only debated for 2 days. So when the House resumes after the recess, there will still be 2 more days to engage on this particular speech from His Excellency the President. So in that case, honorable members, I want to remind us the notification of recess, just to remind us, as you know, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 28.3 relating to the calendar of the Assembly, I notify you again that upon rise of the House today, at the appointed time, regular sittings will resume on Tuesday, June 5th, 2018. Honorable members, the time being 2 minutes after 7 p.m., this House starts adjourned till Tuesday, 5th June 2018 at 2:30 p.m.